a thought of pain that we've previously experienced before. And once we get to that point, we're like, oh, I can't go any further. I'm going to stop.
Mhm.
But being able to say to yourself, you know what? For this particular thing,
Yeah.
I'm not going to let it stop me. Welcome to another episode of Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we have deep, transformative conversations to help you transform your mind, to transform your life. I'm your favorite freedom and financial life coach, Coach Sapphire Star. And of course, with me, I have my favorite co host, Coach.
Idle McLeod.
And we are super, super excited to come to you with another deep conversation. But before we get into our conversation for today, I want to remind my Soul Shifter viewers and those that are going to subscribe and begin following us today. If you would like to join the tribe, please go to www.soulshift.sessions.com to join the tribe. If you would like to be a part of the conversation and come on the show, go to www.soulshiftsessions.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Soul Shift Sessions. Coach Kyle, what are we talking about today?
You know, it's interesting how you say to transform your mind, to transform your life, because that's really what we're talking about is what we do to transform our minds. And so I'm reading a book, and the book is talking about masculinity. So it's for males, and it talks about, or the title is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And it breaks men down into these 4 archetypes, for we're supposed to have them all. And there are certain areas that we're strong in, certain areas where we're not so strong in. And the beginning of the book talks about rites of passage and how important it is for the boy to die so that the man can emerge. And when that doesn't happen, what you have are a lot of boys in men's bodies. And we see that everywhere. There's one that talks about the high chair king. You know how like you see the little boy in the high chair and he's like demanding something, but the
Yeah.
parent can't, like, food, no, milk, tosses that away, hollering, screaming. Parents don't know what to do because his child is wilding out. And they probably are not the kind that will beat their child, because certain of us grew up a certain kind of way, and those types of tantrums were not allowed. And
Yeah.
we figured it out real quick that those types of tantrums were not allowed. I am not advocating beating your child. Not
That's,
advocating.
that's not what we do here.
That's not what we do here. But I am saying that my experience caused me to not be the high chair king. Well, we do see this in our country. We see it in leadership. We see it in our administration. We see it all over the place where men will have these crazy tantrums and expect everyone to bow to their will. And the book is saying that that behavior is a result of the boy still living inside a man's body. So I decided to go on my own rites of passage and while reading this book. I haven't even finished the book yet. I still have, like, I want to say maybe about 30 or 40 pages left to go. But I decided I was going to do my own. And that meant getting on my bike and doing more than I'd ever. And I was really expecting to have a lot of insights while I was out there. But I believe I talked to you a couple times out there, especially through Marco Polo, and was like, I don't know if I can continue this. I was literally just trying to survive
Yep.
out there. And so thinking back, there was a moment where I was extremely in pain. And I wouldn't let that be the thing that stopped me. Now, I'll take a break, but when you're cycling to that degree, sometimes breaks can be hazardous to your health because it's like the pain just sets in even further. And I decided to keep going in the midst of all that pain, and something remarkable happened. It stopped. It didn't stop forever, but it did stop. And I was able to continue on. And I think that about mile 80 something was when I talked to you physically on the phone. And I had stopped at that point because you can't hear me when I'm riding. And towards the end of that phone conversation, the pain did come back, but it
Yeah.
wasn't there prior to. And it was a weird experience for me because I've always allowed that pain to stop.
Mm.
Or the ride was over at that point where the pain got really bad. The ride was there were no more miles to complete afterwards. But, 80, 90 miles in, out of a 170-mile ride, there's a whole lot of miles left.
And that seems like a word in itself of just in life when we go through things and we have a tendency to allow experiences, especially if when we talk about trauma and there's something that we're doing that may trigger a thought of pain that we've previously experienced before. And once we get to that point, we're like, oh, I can't go any further. I'm going to stop.
Mhm.
But being able to say to yourself, you know what, for this particular thing,
Yeah.
I'm not going to let it stop me.
Yeah.
And you didn't. That wasn't the thing that stopped you because your mind was made up probably before the ride that, you know what, in the past, I've let pain, I've let trauma, I let heartbreak, I let all these things stop me from pursuing what I want. I let fear, I let these things stop me, but I'm
Mhm.
no longer doing that. Now, something else may come up that may have the ability to
Right.
stop me,
But
but
that,
it won't be that.
right. Not
And how much further did you go than you would have because you decided that that was not going to be the thing?
Do you remember? I want to say it's called Video Soul, but it was an old music video show on BET.
Oh yeah, I remember
And
that.
Donnie, I think it was Donnie Simpson. Was that his name? The
Yeah.
host of.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Donnie would always have this saying at the end. He would say, "Shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll still be among the
Being
stars."
amongst the stars. Yeah. Les Brown says that all the time too.
Does he?
Yeah.
I didn't finish that ride. I did not finish the 170 miles. I did get 140. And once, the heat stroke started to set in, and I know what those symptoms are. Like I wear a headband, I've got a helmet, I've got my earbuds on. And when those things start feeling like they're squeezing my head, and I know they're not squeezing my head, that's when I know that that's like a telltale sign that it's time to stop and call for a ride. And so I did that. And I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed
Mm.
because in my head, it at some point it stopped being about a rites of passage. It became about me completing 170 miles.
Do you feel like you lost sight of the whole purpose of the journey to begin with?
I don't feel like I lost sight of it, but I do feel that in that moment, I wasn't present to the point of it all.
Yeah.
I was only present to what I had not accomplished. And that is very common for me of what I have not done. You could say, "Oh, you did such a great job." And in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, but I did not X."
Mm. And it's, you know, because my question to you is, how did you come up with this arbitrary number that you came up with? And why did you come up with that number of 180? What's the total?
170. I'm not sure. Oh, I know why 170. I know why. When I was designing the route, I was going for 200. And when I was doing it late at night, and I had this app that I'm literally marking the points of where I turned and so on and so forth. And it only ended in 170. And I told myself, all right, that's good enough. Because the longest I had ever done in my life was 127. And
And
that
you
were
superseded that.
and I superseded that.
Yeah.
But the 170 on the screen was like, all right, that's way more than I've ever done. There's only one organized ride that is literally a 200-mile ride. It's like 100 miles out and then 100 miles back. And I always wanted to do it, but I never trained. I never trained for it. So I was like, 170 is not bad. If I complete 170 miles by myself without any assistance, with people on standby that know that unless I'm injured, that's the only reason they're allowed to come get me, that should suffice. It never dawned on me that I was not going to complete it though. It never dawned on me that I wasn't going to complete it.
It seemed like there's a couple of things going on here.
Play me.
seems like-
I'll get on your couch. I will get on your couch. You got a pad and pen? You got a pad and pen so that you
So there's the rites of passage, right? And I was going to ask you there for the rites of passage as you're reading the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover.
Mhm.
What's the ultimate goal or end game for the rites of passage, like on the other side? What is the goal of that?
I'm not sure I know how to answer that particular question because I don't know what the goal is. For me, the goal is transformation.
So that was your goal, transformation.
Transformation was the goal. And any behaviors that I can identify that are the little boy behaviors that don't belong, because even though we talk about killing the boy off, that's probably really not an accurate way to describe it, because
Yeah.
the little boy, he is full of wonder and he's inquisitive and he wants to experience the world and he wants to be happy and joyful and all those things. We're not killing off that part of the boy. But what we are killing off is the version of the boy that refuses to allow the man to be a man. The version of the boy that will throw the tantrums when he doesn't get his way. The version that will use silence as a weapon. The version that will be cold and heartless towards the people that he loves because he feels unloved. That's the boy that we're trying to kill.
Wow.
And I've done a lot of different assessments. I issue out DISC assessments. People have heard of the Myers-Briggs, but all of these different assessments they break people down into these categories and say, this is really who you are. And we know that no matter what assessment you take, they're not the 100% of the person, but it gives someone on the outside some insight to you, and you can get some insight to yourself. That's the purpose of those particular assessments. But with this one, with King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, it's about where are you deficient? So that king archetype, if that's a low number for you, where is the shadow side of the king showing up in your life? And can you identify that? Can you see that? Can you make different choices from that? But it's not about, oh, you are more of a king than you are a magician. Oh, you're more a warrior than you are a lover. The book is getting you to be all of those things and be the best parts of those things for yourself. And to me, that's very different than these other assessments that will just say, like, this is really who you are. And if you fall into this category, this is how you treat them and how you treat yourself, and so on and so forth. It's very, very different.
That's powerful. And when you told me about the book, my initial thought was, wow, I would really love to read that because I always, I love learning, I love understanding, and obviously men and women are very different
Yes.
genetically,
Yes.
hormonally, we are different. And for me, in relationships, whether they're platonic, friendships, romantic, I always lean towards and lean in towards understanding. So for me, I was like, oh, I would love to get this book to have an understanding of a man as a woman and just helping to improve my relationships with the men that are in my life. And
Yeah.
so I just like, oh, wow, that is very profound. And so do you think that is something that women could learn some things about the men in their life, whether their husband, their brother, their whoever? Is that something that women can
I think it's
learn?
willing. Not everyone is as willing as you are to learn. Start with that. And if you're willing to learn about men, because we will tend to act as if we're very simple. I've thought that. I've thought that men are simple, women are complex. Y'all are.
We
Y'all
are.
are
And
very
is.
complex, but men are more complex than I thought.
Mhm.
And this book helps me understand that. And for me, I'm a very logical person. In order for my world to make sense, I have to have understanding and be able to fit things into, I don't know if fitting them into systems is the right set of words, but being able to look at a person and say, yeah, that's that high king behavior coming out.
Mm.
Or that person is not engaged with the emotional side of themselves and they are not, they're cold towards the people around them. That's that warrior side coming out. Being able to see that
See
makes it
that.
a lot easier for me because it makes my world make more sense.
Mm. Again, more understanding. Yeah.
More understanding.
Yeah. That's
There's
why
some
I
people who
love.
just don't want to understand. They
That's
just
true.
don't want to understand. They want to go based off of what pops in here. And I believe I've said this to you before, which is if you do not get the facts, then the mind will make it up.
Yeah. You have
And
said
then
that.
when the mind makes it up, we just act like that's the truth. And it's not that it's a lie or it's false. It's just that that's not the only truth there is.
Yeah. There's very few absolutes. When people say truth, I'll be like, your truth. Like, there's very few absolute truths in this world. But doesn't mean that that's not true to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean your truth is my truth either.
Yes. And if you understand that, you can say, you can at least look at yourself and say, all right, this is the way I see it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this is the only way to see things.
Yeah.
And if you're willing, you can see a whole lot more. But if you're not willing, and this, when I get into a debate or an argument with someone, I have to determine if this person's even willing to see a different side.
Yeah.
But they're not willing to see a different side. Why are we even continuing on? Why?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to change it's not going to change their perspective. Your perspective may or may not change. And so what type of resolution are you going to come to?
Yeah. There's a saying, I think it goes like, if you're arguing with a fool from afar, you both look like fools.
Both look like fools.
You both look like fools.
Very similar
So
in math, right? If you take a negative number and multiply by positive, you still
you'll
get
get a negative number.
a negative number.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And just taking back to your definition or your goal of the rites of passage, you said it was transformation and on your in your journey, right? And so I wanted to ask you, like, what does transformation mean to you?
For me, transformation means that I am coming out different than I was before.
Mm.
That might be in my beliefs, that might be in my behavior, it might be all of the above. But there's something that I had prior to that I no longer have that, or I'm no longer being ran by that.
Yeah.
When a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, there's still parts of that caterpillar that's still inside of them.
Yeah.
But on the outside, that caterpillar can do things that he couldn't do before. He could fly.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that before. Looks completely different.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that what was on the inside is 100% gone. And so
Mm.
that helps me understand that there are still thoughts, there are still feelings, because it's still inside my DNA. But what I choose to project afterwards, that can be very different. And so going through that particular ride, it was about me trying to lay to rest the things that I felt no longer work for me. And one of those things is being stopped. I get stopped very easily. I could just be tired and get stopped.
Yeah.
And we live in a society where we talk about listen to your body, listen to your body. If you're tired, go take a nap. If you're this, go do that. If you are in pain, stop. Let your body recover. And I believe that that's true, but I also believe that there are times where stopping is not the right thing because there's a barrier that needs to be broken through. My cousin would always say when we did these courses with Youth at Risk, on the other side of a breakdown is a breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah. You could think about that image of the guy that's digging and he's so close to the gold or the treasure, and it's either say for instance, he just stopped and just decided and gave up, where he
Yeah.
was like this close to the
Yeah.
very thing that he had did all that hard work for, this close.
How many times have you ever worked hard for something or you did your form of digging and no one else can see how close you are? You especially can't see because you're the one that's in it.
Yeah.
And you look back years later and like, man, if I had just kept going, I would have broken through whatever that barrier was. Has that ever happened for you?
I would say no, and it's only because of perspective. I believe that the losses, right, in life or the things that I did not achieve, which I can't really think of many things I haven't achieved that I said I wanted to, first. And secondly, there were lessons for me There were lessons when I didn't necessarily get the outcome that I expected. And I'm always looking to learn from them lessons because I believe in everything that we do, the goals that we set. It's not about the end game. It's not about the 170 miles. It's not about the 200 miles. It's not the 140 miles. It's who you are becoming as a result of stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone. That person is developing because when you're faced with another challenge, that person, that developed person is there to even come stronger, come harder, and maybe supersede the next thing that I set for myself. And so, you say the joy is in the journey all the time. That's how I see it. It's like the journey, there's a lesson. The goal, there's a lesson. The mountaintop, there's a lesson. But then there's a valley. People, we talk about the mountaintop, but there's also the valley. And what happens with the valley and the mountain, it's a cycle. It's a cycle that we go through. But I firmly believe a result from us coming from one valley to one mountaintop to another valley, there is a person that is growing and developing that's stronger and becoming stronger and stronger and stronger in life.
The difference, I think, between you and I, well, not a difference anymore because I've been fortunate enough to get to know you for a year now.
Happy anniversary! 1 year, guys.
Well, you would always say you're either winning or you're learning. And that was very profound for me because in my mind, I have this thing where I do know that there are peaks and there are valleys. I know this. But somewhere deep inside my DNA, there is this belief that there is a moment that you will get to the top. And I know this is not true, by the way. So this is a moment where you get to the top and you'll just stay there. I know it's not true.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I bought that. Like I bought into that maybe when I was younger.
Belief.
There was this point where you'll get to this point where you will have arrived and you'll just stay there. And it's so not true. And I know it. Cognitively, I know it.
Mm-hmm.
DNA-wise, deep down inside, there's still this desire now to just get to a point and to be able to stay. Well, you're not growing at that point.
That's true.
Even if you make it to that point, even if that really did exist, that there's a point where you can get to the top and stay there, you're no longer growing.
Yeah. And you're not evolving. You're not, because like I said, this mountaintop is amazing for right where you are in your life. But there's so much more. Like now you've created a limitation. Now
and you'll spend more time going up than you will sitting at the top of that mountain because the minute you get up there's another higher mountain.
Yeah.
And if you get up this one, I might be able to get up
that one.
Because
that mountaintop and you staying there, because at first the mountaintop was you coming out of your comfort zone, you coming out the valley, you going into the fear zone, and now you're in the growth zone. But that growth zone then becomes another comfort zone.
You're expanding it.
You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is if you say, okay, I'm going to stay, like if you're like, okay, but also too, I think like there's an emotional, psychological, and mental thing that's happening once we achieve certain things, certain goals that we set out for ourselves. Like and I guess, I don't know if I would call this a rites of passage, but I took a journey. I took a pilgrimage when I walked 172 miles in 2 weeks on the Camino de Santiago. So I walked from Portugal to Spain. And it's just something in your mind when you get to a point of, hey, I want to do this. I did it. And then it becomes now what? But it's like, it kind of like unlocks. It's like, oh, I can do this. I did this. This is just amazing. But again, just feeding into that, like you said, that transformation, whatever that thing is that's in your mind that may be a limitation. And you're like, oh, that's no longer a limitation. Like in your example, it was the pain. That was something that became limitation. And now the transformation is that did not stop me. That's,
Oh, 100%, because I'm already, well, there's two things, right? There's one is called, all right, I'm going to get that 170. Right. Come on. I want to get this 170. But in the moment, I was like, I don't want to ever do this again. But then
Yeah.
comes the next day, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to get my 170. Now, I might not get it the next weekend. I might have to do a little bit of recovery, but I'm going to go get that because I did not get it before. And the other thing is, whereas I was always doing, let's say, maybe about somewhere between 50 and 55 miles, and then that would be enough for the whole freaking weekend.
Yeah.
Now the mind is like, we could at least do 100.
Easy. You're going to be doing 80 like it's nothing. Like, oh, this easy work.
Right.
It's a nice
And
little
then
stroll.
that becomes the comfort zone. Right. And well, now it's, all right, so how do I do the 50 way faster than I've ever done it before? Because there are different types of pain levels, right? So there's different types of pain, because there's pain from just being out there forever, but there's also pain from you are physically pushing hard and it's hot out and you have to manage your fluid intake so that way you don't cramp up. And there's all these different factors, but doing that inside of a 50-mile segment, I could probably do that a whole lot faster now because I'm not going to be out there for
That long. Yeah.
100 miles. Like, I'm only going to be out there for the 50. So let me see how hard can I bang out this 50. So there's new things that opened up,
That
add
unlocked.
abilities
Yeah.
that were not there before. But I do have a question for you, though, about the Camino.
And one thing I lost track of while I was sharing just now about the emotional, psychological, and mental, like you spoke about getting to the mountaintop and like just wanting to stay there. Because I do believe that's a feeling that you have and it feels so good. It feels so amazing. And you just want to just hold it all in. But I do believe there's a way for us to harness that. As we're going into the valley, we can take that joy, that peace, and that thing that we feel, harness it in our mental. So even as we're going through the valley, we still have that mountaintop feeling within us in our inner joy. And I feel like that's what inner joy and peace is all about, right? No matter what I'm going through, I'm good.
And that's momentum.
Yeah.
If you're going, in order to go to the valley, you have to descend, right?
Yeah.
And as you're descending, it can go pretty quickly because of gravity.
And you're like, wait, what? I'm not ready.
However,
I just had this amazing moment with the.
but momentum, on the other hand, is you're going down there, it's speeding up, and you're like, I have all the things that from the top that I'm carrying with me, because it wasn't just the top, it was what it took to get to the top. So I'm carrying what it took to get there, the experience of being there, and now we're heading downhill, and I'm carrying all that with me and carrying it with the positive thoughts that go along with that. Called, I don't care what's down there. I can get through that because I got through this.
Yes. Like you said, the positive thought and the power, because now you got gravity that's actually, because you could look at it two ways. You could be like, oh, gravity is against me, but it's like, oh no, gravity is working in my favor.
Yes. There are certain areas where it is more dangerous to go that fast because there's a stop sign at the bottom of the hill. But there are certain areas where it makes way more sense to go as fast as you can down that hill. And with certain cyclists around the country, like if you grew up or if you cycle in California, they got massive hills, but they also got stop signs at the bottom of those hills. So you can't just go with it. But if you're in places like Alabama, and believe it or not, Florida does have some areas where there are some serious hills. But if you're in like Alabama, or if you're in Florida and you're going through these hills, it makes way more sense to push as hard as you can while you're going downhill, because there's no stop sign and there's another hill coming. So you need to
climb back
that
up.
momentum so that as you're going up, you can not work so hard on that up climb because you got the momentum from the last hills. That's what we call rolling hills, right? That I'm just doing that. And it makes all the difference. But what's interesting about people when they come to Florida is that they're so used to coasting down hills. But then when they get around us, we're pedaling. They're coasting this, feet are in stationary, wheels are spinning. But for us, we are downhill. And we're probably going at a much higher gear because we're trying to get as much speed as we can because the next hill is coming. And I want to use as little bit of my own personal energy as I can as I'm going up that next hill. And who knows, maybe that momentum will carry me all the way to the top. But if it doesn't, at least I don't have to work as hard.
You are preaching a word. If you think about this as a metaphor for life, you are preaching a word. Winter is coming. It's inevitable. Life gon' life. But why not take that momentum from that last lesson? Why not take that lesson learned and work? Not have to work as hard. Use the power. Use all the things that you've gotten and gathered to take you up to the other side. Like, that is just powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right, here's my question for you. You're on the Camino. It's 2 weeks. I want you to think about the most challenging day that you had when you were walking.
Oh, got it.
Okay, yesterday I walked 8 miles and my legs are not so much my feet and my ankles are just feeling like this. And so you did 170 miles?
172.
172. We can't short you on those 2 miles, right?
No, give me my 2. Give me my 2. Give me my 2. Yeah.
Tell me about the hardest day. What were the thoughts? What were the emotions? And what was the physical burden of that day?
Listen.
Oh, this will
Picture this. Picture this, Portugal. 2023. I remember it like it was yesterday because I woke up early that morning, ate my breakfast.
How far in are you at this point?
I believe this was day 6 or 7.
Okay. About halfway through.
Yeah, about 6 or 7. And had my breakfast, grabbed my backpack, actually walking out of this little small village, bought a little stick, like a little walking stick, right? And then as I exit out of the village, I then approach this forest and I have to it starts an incline into this forest. And so I'm climbing, I'm going up, and then I'm in this forest, walking. But as I'm walking, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't see anybody else. I don't see anybody else. And then I don't see any signage because the Camino is very well, signs everywhere. I don't see any signage. I don't just see any people. But, I didn't okay, just keep walking. It starts raining. And I'm talking about torrential downpour. So I don't see anyone. I'm getting really tired now at this point because I'm still climbing up this hill into a forest. And it's pouring rain with my backpack. And in my mind, I'm just like, am I lost? And then the thoughts just really went downhill. And it was like, what if something happens to me? There's like no one I can call. Who am I going to call? I can't call my mama in America. Like, I'm not in my mind thinking like, who am I going to call? How are people going to find me? Like, this is like, I'm really thinking life choices. And I'm not even going to kid you. A small voice just kind of crept up in the inside of me and it came out and it was like, just keep moving forward. One foot in front of the other. It no longer became the make it to the end, make it to my next destination. It was just this step. All right, good job. This step, good job. This step. I started just looking at what was directly in front of me. And the more I did that, the reality was, before I knew it, I was to my destination. Like, I started seeing people. The rain stopped. I arrived. But I had to, for me to survive and get through that, I had to take my eyes off of whatever I thought the end game was for that day. It had to come back to one step, the next step. Then it became, okay, just one more mile. Okay, good, you made it. Another mile. Like, I had to bring it down into bite-sized, palatable, and not this grandiose thing that I was doing, because
Yeah.
it became just mentally overwhelming. Fear was starting to creep in, and I was like, focus. And that's an acronym I learned from one of my mentors, and it's follow one course until successful. And that just kept playing in my mind. One step, 1 mile, one moment at a time. And like I said, before I knew it, I'd arrive.
There's this like the word for the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneur has a full-blown checklist of tasks that have to get done. And just looking at it is overwhelming. Because you know what it takes to do each one of those tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, it's 6 a.m. I have all these tasks that have to get done today. And you know what it takes to do each one of these tasks. And you already are seeing the end of your day ending at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night because of what it takes to get through all these items. And you are letting us know one foot at a time, one step at a time.
How do you
Don't
eat an
look at
elephant?
anything else.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Because if you think about, oh, I'm gonna eat this elephant, you get like, oh shoot, like this is a lot. But if you think, oh, one bite, oh, I can handle one bite. I can,
Yeah.
and you gotta think, it was kind of like very like this metaphorical thing, like I'm walking in the wilderness.
And
I'm
you are.
alone. Yeah,
And
literally,
we're
like
that
literally
too.
and figuratively. Like, I'm in the wilderness. I'm alone. There's no one around me. In entrepreneurship, it's a lonely road. It can feel that way. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like you're starting to question, why did I decide to start this business? What was I thinking about? You know, and these
Yeah.
are the thoughts that are going through your mind. But if you could just bring it back to your why, if you could just reel it into, like you said, what task am I going to complete right now? Because if you keep taking one step at a time,
Yeah.
eventually you're going to arrive at your goal, your destination, and the elephant is going to be done.
I'm chuckling because I remember telling you what I should have done on Saturday. I'm like, I should have just got some things to put me in a different mental state and gone paddleboarding. Like,
You did.
yes, like, to just go.
Why am I out here? I'm telling you
Paddleboard.
that was probably very normal, because I was like, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of the woods somewhere in Portugal. I don't even know where I am. I can't even explain to somebody, yeah, I'm up the street around the corner by the local, I couldn't even tell you where I was.
And what's really cool about this
In a
story
foreign
is
land, foreign language, like, dun.
what's really wild is that you thought you were lost, but you never were.
I never was. I never was lost. I was right on. I was right exactly where I was supposed to be. I was never lost. But it's something about that mind, and we talking about transformation, transform your mind to transform your life.
Yeah.
That's where the power
How
is.
often have we thought we were on the wrong, that we were lost, that we don't, everything is a question mark. Everything is a question mark. And turns out you were actually right
Right?
where you're supposed to be.
Exactly where you're supposed to be. Yeah.
You mentioned the guy that was digging, and if he just dug a little bit further, he would have found whatever he was digging for, right?
Yeah.
And I know I asked you, had you ever had a moment like that where you felt that you probably stopped too early? And that wasn't the exact question, but it was along those lines.
Yeah.
You were like, no, because I'm always learning. I'm either winning or I'm learning. And I think back, we're watching the movie of the guy that's digging. The whole audience knows that, because the director has shown how much further he has to go. But in real life, no one knows.
No one knows.
No
You
one
can't see that.
knows how much further you have to go. But everyone believes, including except you, right? Everyone except the person that's digging believes if you would just keep going, it's right there. And this is one of the things I really do like about social media, is because if you curate your social media really towards your taste and what you're up to,
Yeah.
there will be tons of posts that will say, the minute it starts feeling like it's crazy, the minute it starts feeling like everything's falling apart, the minute it feels like it's not going to work, that's when you are at your closest point of having the breakthrough. Which goes back to Mark's point. At every breakdown, on the other side of every breakdown, there's a breakthrough.
And speaking to your point of, people watching the movie and they're like, just keep going. You're right there. They see it. That's the community that we cultivate. That's the tribe that we surround ourselves with. Those are the people that are in our lives that be like, oh, you just keep going, because they're watching, they're looking. And sometimes we don't even take that in. We're like, me? Just like Dora from our last episode that's coming, that is what, season 2, episode 14, I believe, where, she talked about that, like, people seeing something in you that you don't even see in yourself. You're like, me? But that's the people watching the movie. They're watching you. They have a very unique perspective that you don't necessarily have. And so it's trusting the process. That, honestly, that was my takeaway. That was my message from the Camino. When I was in that forest, in the wilderness, questioning life choices, God said to me, trust the process.
You inspired me to want to do this. To do this one day.
To do the journey?
Yeah, to do the Camino. And it wasn't until this conversation, I believe, that I was like, this is stop. That's great for her. I don't see myself walking nowhere.
They're cyclists too.
Well, they're just doing the 8 miles yesterday. First of all, the 8 miles was not even intentional. It wasn't planned. And I'm obviously hurting from it. But now I'm like, what if I was intentionally doing 172 miles?
So you're saying we're going to do the Camino together?
I think we're going to have to do this together.
Hell yeah. Sign me up. I accept your invitation to do the Camino with you.
And they can't kick us out like they will at this silent retreat.
They can't. Like, they cannot. The world is our oyster. Like, listen, we've already planted the seed, so it's going to happen.
When does the Camino actually happen?
You could do the Camino anytime you want.
Oh, I thought it was like an actual event, like that has a start date and end date. So you're just saying that people are doing this all the time and you just go.
It's literally your journey. Like, and I did this, and I forgot how long the Camino has been going on. I mean, the Camino de Santiago means the way of St. James, right? The Apostle St. James, and that was supposed to be the route that he took to the church. And it's a religious thing, but it's not necessarily like everybody do it for different reasons. Like I've talked to people from all over the world on the pilgrimage, and this thing that they say when you're walking, you say "Buen Camino," like when you're passing people,
Yeah.
complete strangers. But it's something about that feeling, that connection you have with complete strangers that they came here from wherever they came from for whatever reason they did it for, but you guys are connected in such a special way. And what you say, buen camino, good. They basically wishing you well on your way, on your walk, on your camino. It's such a beautiful thing. And people do the camino. There's many, and that's the beauty thing too. And what I learned when I got to the end, there's many ways to do the camino. There's not just one route.
Okay.
There's like I did the Portuguese route from Portugal to Spain. The
Okay.
main route that when you hear people say Camino de Santiago, that's called the French way, where you walk from France to Spain. But there are many ways to do the Camino. It's such a beautiful experience and such a beautiful life lesson that you walk away with when you complete it.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And we won't get
We won't get kicked out. When you get the opportunity, watch the movie called The Way.
The Way.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I thoroughly enjoy this conversation today. You know, and it helped put some things in perspective because, you know, when I finished on Saturday, darn near had to put myself to the, we have the saying, don't we? If you're not dying, you're not living.
You're not living.
One could argue that I kind of brought myself to the point of the last show game couldn't have been my last show.
So it sounds like it was a successful rites of passage in the sense of what your goal was, the transformation. I know you had an arbitrary number, but it's like in the overarching goal of things, like you were able to, come out on the other side with some more insight about the king, warrior, magician, lover inside of you.
The insight seems to be coming more so after the fact. Like even today, this conversation has provided some insight, and hearing about your journey in the Camino put more of my journey into perspective. So I'm hoping that I don't have to get a whole lot of perspectives,
Like I got it.
But I remember, like yesterday, I was like, I didn't even ask for patience, and yet here we are. Like patience is being tested. I didn't ask for this.
You didn't even know what you needed. God was like, "You need this, sir. Here you go. Go,
like the thing that causes that to show up."
But God is like, you need it. Like for where God is taking you, Kyle, this next chapter in your life, these are the things that the tools and resources that you are going to need to get you there. Because God is preparing you for something bigger, something greater, something far more than you can even imagine right now.
Yeah.
So
I will say this.
Buckle up, sir.
One thing that you, as well as some of the guests that have done on the show since we've been doing this podcast, especially with season 2, is I used to have a hard time with not gratitude wasn't the word. It was, I had a hard time accepting compliments. And I actually thought I had got over that because I would just learn to say, thank you. I appreciate it. I learned to do those things. But you have these things that you'll say that go beyond just being able to say thank you and I appreciate that. And you'll say some things like the last podcast, I wish I could remember what it was you said, but it was
Because
one
you
of
know
those.
I don't remember.
I know you don't remember, right? But I was. It had something to do with me being like a connect. Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't last week. It was when Patton came on.
Oh,
And
I call you the great facilitator.
right, you call it the great facilitator, and I'm like, okay, thank you, because I don't typically see anything that has to do with me and great in the same sentence.
Mm.
And doing this show with you has gotten me to a point where I just have to just say and try it on, and I mean, I'm not gonna say it always like a glove,
Yeah.
but I will start trying things on to see if they fit now. Whereas before it was like, yeah, no.
That's not me, right?
You don't know.
And you told me something early on in our friendship. You sent me something and you told me, you said, don't let me fight for my limitations. And I just took that as a responsibility and a charge as your friend. Like, I'm not going to let him fight for his limitations. You did. You sent me something like a meme. It was like a meme or something. And you was like, don't let me fight for my limitations.
I do not remember that in the slightest.
Yeah, you did. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that is powerful. Because I feel like we do that. We like go hard on the things that we're not good at. We spend so much time on that and we give it so much light, And yeah, they may be there, but there's power. There's so many more things that are great about us that is there too that we can. And it's just
Yeah.
that perspective, really, right? Just shifting and changing that, soul shift sessions, shifting that perspective. And my biggest takeaway from this particular episode is I really appreciate being able to have a conversation with you and your insight just about your perspective as a man. And I'm sure our audience, our women and male viewers can really appreciate this conversation and this perspective because I don't think we hear that often. I do believe that to me you're far more vulnerable and you share things about yourself. And I just think that is so amazing because most men don't do that or even feel like they have the space or even feel like anybody even cares to be able to do that. So I do think that this episode just gives the men viewers space to be like, I am not alone.
Just to be.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I don't struggle with it, but when it comes up, I have to make sure that I choose the opposite. And what I mean by that is anytime in my mind, I think, well, we should be a certain way. And in that moment, it's like, all right, let me go ahead and be real and talk about what's really going on. What the real thought is, not the rehearsed thought of, no, good and well, that there are moments I'll have where I'm having a limited thought or I'm having, or I might be wrestling with something that I've talked about weeks ago.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, that's something that BMO Raw is really great at, is showing that, hey, we all, no matter how transformed we are, no matter how much knowledge we have, we are still susceptible to the same things that we talked about that people are to get over. Like the things we're telling people to get over, we are set with those same exact things because we're human. And so I don't ever want to come across as not being.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, ritual practice. I believe that was season 2, episode 13, when BMO Raw came back with us. It's like these are things that we have to work on daily. Even when you're transformed, it's like
because it's still in there.
It's still there. Yeah.
It didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But sometimes we operate like, all right, I'm over it and now it is gone.
Move on. Yeah.
It's gone. It doesn't even exist in my cells anymore. And you just want to say, be please. What?
Be real, be more raw. That ain't it. Okay? That ain't it. We have to tell, be more raw. We got a new rawism. Be pleased. Want to add that to the rawism dictionary.
Please.
Be pleased. Well, this has been an amazing episode. I'm definitely like, my mind is transformed. I'm definitely elevated. I always walk away from these podcasts with a sense of just a better version of myself from the conversation that we're having. And if our viewers are listening, what was one thing that stood out to you today on this podcast? Please put it in the comment section. If you know someone that can use a soul shift, I always say sharing is caring. Please share the podcast. Also, we are on a mission to getting 100 subscribers, and we would really appreciate if you guys would subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast. We're so close.
You're so close.
You just get over
If you
there.
just keep going.
Just keep going. Just keep digging. And so we do appreciate you guys. Any final words, Coach Kyle?
Yeah, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change.
Ooh,
Albert Einstein.
I love that. I love it. And with that, guys, always remember to let your soul glow. Until next time.
Well, next time, gang.